Look, that's only a question, frankly, Reagan, the president can answer. But the Insurrection Act is a tool at the president's disposal. As you know, it has been used sparingly, but it has been used by previous presidents in American history. And I think the president's Truth Social post spoke very loud and clear to Democrats across this country, elected officials who are using their platforms to encourage violence against federal law enforcement officers, who are encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct legitimate law enforcement operations.
America teeters on the brink of a major domestic military enforcement as President Donald Trump threatens to unleash the rarely used Insurrection Act, a move that could flood U.S. streets with troops. The flashpoint? Minnesota, a city set aflame by protests after a surge of federal immigration agents descended on Minneapolis, sparking furious clashes. What began with days of demonstrations over the deployment of ICE forces has escalated into chaos. Crowds enraged by the fatal shooting of Renee Good and a subsequent wounding by an ICE officer fuel growing fury, while local leaders brace for a showdown that could redefine law and order on American soil. The latest threat by Trump came just hours after another shooting involving immigration officers. Authorities say an officer shot a Venezuelan man in the leg after agents tried to stop his vehicle in Minneapolis. The government claims the man was fleeing, but the incident further inflamed already volatile protests. Crowds gathered near the scene, shouting in anger as tensions spilled into the night. On social media, President Trump issued a stark message. He warned that if Minnesota's leaders failed to act, he would invoke the Insurrection Act. Trump accused what he called corrupt politicians of allowing agitators and insurrectionists to attack immigration and customs enforcement officers. He described ICE agents as patriots and said the law would be used if order was not restored.
President Trump threatened invoking the Insurrection Act today in a Truth Social post. I'm wondering what his tipping point is. What would it take for him to invoke the Insurrection Act?
Look, that's only a question, frankly, Reagan, the president can answer. But the Insurrection Act is a tool at the president's disposal. As you know, it has been used sparingly, but it has been used by previous presidents in American history. And I think the president's Truth Social post spoke very loud and clear to Democrats across this country, elected officials who are using their platforms to encourage violence against federal law enforcement officers, who are encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct legitimate law enforcement operations. And if you talk to any law enforcement officer, no matter what level they work at, they want to be working with their counterparts, whether that's at the federal level or the federal authorities wanting to work with their counterparts at the state and local level. And it's truly shameful that now for more than a year, you've had elected Democrat governors and mayors who have basically held their state and local law enforcement hostage and told them, you cannot cooperate with federal law enforcement. Why? They cooperated under the Biden administration. It's because these Democrats are deranged in their hatred for President Trump, and they are holding their state and local law enforcement hostage as a result. And I would encourage Governor Walz and other Democrats who are demeaning law enforcement to sit down and have a cup of coffee with an ICE agent or a Border Patrol agent. These are great, patriotic men and women who have families, who put on the uniform every day and are following our nation's immigration laws at the direction of their bosses and again, at the direction of the law. They are simply trying to enforce the law. And the Democrat Party has demeaned these individuals. They've even referred to them as Nazis and as the Gestapo. And that is absolutely leading to the violence we're seeing in the streets. If you look at some of the images out of Minneapolis last night, look at this vehicle. Look at what it says. It says F ICE. You have these individuals who are putting their middle finger, proudly so, at the camera. Another ICE individual, a vehicle that was vandalized last night by these left-wing agitators. People don't do this without encouragement from people in power who make them feel like it's okay.
U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said President Donald Trump has the constitutional authority to invoke the Insurrection Act and crush protests targeting federal immigration officers in Minneapolis.
Do you believe there are any cases in Minnesota where the ICE agents have gone too far?
Our ICE agents are following the law and running their operations according to training. Last night what we saw was 3 individuals weaponize shovels and brooms and attack an ICE officer that had to defend himself. So we're hopeful that we don't see that again, that we as protesters and violent rioters will be held accountable for the actions that they're taking and that our officers can do their work safely. President Trump is so strong at taking action and making sure he's in every single state following through on his commitments to every single citizen.
Did the president say what his final straw would be to invoke the Insurrection Act if he did?
No, this president uses all the information and intelligence that he can get. That's why he calls me, he calls Pete, he calls local law enforcement. He talks to those individuals and agents as well that are involved that he knows well. This president makes fully informed decisions and utilizes his authorities when it's appropriate.
Secretary Noem, are you okay with federal agents and officers violating people's Fourth Amendment rights by asking for papers without reasonable suspicion?
Every single action that our ICE officers take is according to the law and following protocols that we have used for years, that this administration has used, that the previous administration used. They are doing everything correctly, and over again in litigation in the courts, we've proven that they've done the right thing.
Why is it within their right to do that? Why is
Yes,
it
go
within their
ahead.
right to ask for papers without reasonable suspicion?
With the president,
Okay. I think
you
it's
say you
important.
discussed the Insurrection Act with the president. Did you recommend that?
No, we just discussed it, that it was one of the options that he had constitutionally, and we talked about the fact that we're going to continue our operations in Minneapolis and have the resources that we need to get the job done.
Do you think we'll likely invoke it?
Yes.
Do you think that there needs to be an Insurrection Act invoked?
Oh, I think that the president has that opportunity in the future. It's his constitutional right, and it's up to him if he wants
Do
to
you think
utilize
he's
it.
likely to do it?
I don't know.
But
Could
if he
ask
does
him.
do
Yes.
it, will it lead to more deadly killings in Minnesota if the Insurrection Act is invoked?
If anything doesn't change with Governor Walz, I don't anticipate that the streets will get any safer or more peaceful. Governor Walz and his leadership team need to come to us and find out how we can work together like we have in many other states. We didn't see this kind of reaction in Louisiana.
House Democrats are furious, slamming Trump's threat to deploy the act in Minneapolis as a dangerous overreach.
We need to take every incident with review and concern, and that's why it's deeply concerning to me that this administration and ICE is unwilling to work with local and state law enforcement to get to the bottom of what really has happened. We should all want that. We should all want to lower the temperature across this country, and so I think we should be able to fund and support law enforcement in a way that also holds it accountable.
It's been made very clear by Governor Walz and all of the authorities that they are in control of the situation, that the protests are overwhelmingly peaceful, that the abuses of ICE are being investigated. We will continue to investigate them. But Minnesota has been very clear that they do not want the intervention of the federal government. But just like California last year, where Donald Trump sent the military in improperly, and the courts actually agreed with that and said that he lacked the authority to do so. Once again, he's pushing the boundaries of the rule of law.
This is a moment for the country. I mean, the president is acting in a lawless way. He's got an ICE agency acting as his private police. They're knocking on people's doors, American citizens' doors, and taking away their freedom. They shot to death a 37-year-old mother. They dragged out of a car a person with disability who was going to the doctor and harassed her. They have harassed an elderly couple, smashing their windows. They are going after American citizens. If we are not going to stand up for our freedoms now, if we're not going to stand up for federalism now, then when?
In the immediate moment on DHS funding, it is the case that we have some power of the purse here, and we can get some guardrails and accountability in, and without those, we should not fund this lawlessness from ICE and CBP.
The Insurrection Act allows a president to deploy military forces domestically, but only in rare circumstances. Legal experts say the authority exists, but it comes with significant limits. Retired Brigadier General Michael McDaniel says a president can use the act to call out the National Guard troops.
There's 3 sections to the Insurrection Act. The first section says if the governor requests the assistance of federal troops, the president may deploy them. The second one, and I want to get the language just so I don't say it wrong, the second section of the Insurrection Act says that the president can deploy federal troops even against the state's wishes in order to, quote, enforce the laws or to suppress rebellion against the U.S. government. There is no question that the President of the United States can use the Insurrection Act as legal authority to call out National Guard troops. The last time this was done was in 1992 by George Herbert Walker Bush because of the riots in LA. The second question, though, is what can they do once they're there? And my response is they can't do very much because they cannot engage in law enforcement.
Meanwhile, Minnesota Governor Walz urged his people to protest ICE in their communities, but peacefully.
News reports simply don't do justice to the level of chaos and disruption and trauma the federal government is raining down upon our communities. 2,000 to 3,000 armed agents of the federal government have been deployed to Minnesota. Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live. They're pulling over people indiscriminately, including U.S. citizens, and demanding to see their papers. Let's be very, very clear. This long ago stopped being a matter of immigration enforcement. Instead, it's a campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government. Last week, that campaign claimed the life of Renee Nicole Good. We've all watched the video. We've all seen what happened. And yet, instead of conducting an impartial investigation so we can hold accountable the officer responsible for Renee's death, the Trump administration is devoting the full power of the federal government to finding an excuse to attack the victim and her family. Donald Trump wants this chaos. He wants confusion. And yes, he wants more violence on our streets. We cannot give him what he wants. We must protest loudly, urgently, but also peacefully. Tonight, I want to share another way you can help. Witness. Help us establish a record of exactly what's happening in our communities. You have an absolute right to peacefully film ICE agents as they conduct these activities. So carry your phone with you at all times. And if you see these ICE agents in your neighborhood, take out that phone and hit record. Help us create a database of the atrocities against Minnesotans, not just to establish a record for posterity, but to bank evidence for future prosecution. Minnesotans believe in the rule of law, and Minnesotans believe in the dignity of all people. We're a place where there's room for everybody, no matter who you are, or who you love, or where you came from. A place where we feed our kids, we take care of our neighbors, and we look out for those in the shadows of life. We're an island of decency in a country being driven towards cruelty. We will remain an island of decency, of justice, of community, of peace.